Thank you so much. Hey, team, I'm Chad Martin, Practice Director for Cloud and Data Center. Thank you for joining. I have Manal Sadidin with us today. We've got Christopher Greene with us today with HPE. You know, we just wanted to sit down, have a cup of coffee together, and have a conversation around HPE GreenLake. Thank you again for joining us. This is being recorded. From a housekeeping perspective, everyone is really muted. So if you have questions, please direct them over to the questions box. Manal is going to be nice enough to vet those questions for us. And when there's a question that comes up, she can kind of interrupt or either find a break in the conversation and ask those. If you feel free to wait to the end, we will have Q&A at the end as well. But thank you again for joining. Chris, thank you so much again, man. This is really good stuff. If you don't mind, kind of give a little background on you, kind of who you are and kind of what your current role is with HPE.
Chad, it's great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you. So Christopher Greene, Director for GreenLake here in North America. So my role, I've been involved actually with HP for the last 20 years around our consumption, what we used to call consumption, we now call GreenLake Cloud Services. So back in, the early 2000s, we started this as an experiment because our customers were in need of extra capacity and demand, as their applications did ebb and flow. And through the years, we wrote some white papers. We were involved in several Department of Defense contracts, and this has evolved into a full commercial solution that we have with we now call GreenLake. So great to be here. And again, something I've been involved with for over 20 years here at HPE. Great topic, great way to engage with our customers. So thanks for having me today.
Thanks, Chris. And Manal Sadidin, she's with us as well. She is our partner business manager, what I refer to as our champion around the HPE solution set. With a major focus on GreenLake. She and I work together at TIG. We meet with customers. We discuss the benefits and things of that nature around GreenLake and really everything HPE. So she and I work, side by side every single day. So Manal, thank you for joining with us today. We're really excited. Just real quick, Manal, what is your favorite coffee, if you don't mind me asking? I know this is a big coffee talk today.
Seattle Bus Coffee.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Chris, yourself?
This is Pete's Coffee, specifically Major Dickinson blend. So anything Pete's is always top of the list. This is Major Dickinson blend. Your tried and true every morning coffee.
Okay, and this.
What do you got?
Okay, this is my Dunkin' Donut fresh brew. I'm addicted to it. I don't know why. Just standard Dunkin' Donuts coffee. America runs on Dunkin', right? And no, I'm not getting paid for that advertisement, but I do like Dunkin' Donut coffee. Really, all the flavors, though, to be honest with you. So
you know what, Chad? A lot of our customers, a lot of times I spend a lot of time on the road, especially in New England. If you want coffee, you can't not hit a Dunkin' Donuts. So I have more expense reports with Dunkin' Donuts going than that would be my second. So that's fantastic.
Awesome. Hey, we've seen a lot of marketing around HPE recently, Chris. Manal and I talk about it all the time. We go out to LinkedIn and other, social media sites and the internet, and we're seeing HPE GreenLake everywhere. I actually saw a billboard with HPE GreenLake on it. So can you kind of let us know what HPE GreenLake is at its core, and what can our customers expect to experience from it? Can we start there?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for recognizing that there's been a lot of marketing. HPE traditionally has not been a good marketing engine. We really haven't. We've put more of a focus in around the actual solution. So it's great to see us figuring out the marketing game, right? Which is excellent. But to your point, I want to make sure that people understand what this is. It's bigger than a bread box. It's smaller than a Greyhound bus. At its core, HPE GreenLake is basically us delivering the technology, the solutions that we deliver. It's across the entire HPE portfolio with additional software and vendors that we have relationships with, but it's delivering that technology, the solutions into a customer's data center, into an on-premise data center, colo, or out at the edge. But we're doing it in such a way that we are delivering it in a cloud manner, meaning pay as you go, pay by the workload. So it's effectively cloud, but just not in a cloud location. It's cloud, but delivered into your data center, into your colo, out into the edge. So it is the solution. It's the physical servers. At the end of the day, you say, okay, I buy GreenLake. What do I get? Well, we're going to come in and you will see physical servers. You will see a storage array. You will see networking equipment. There will be software loaded on. So it's the same technology that you've come to know and grow up with around HPE. We're delivering it in a cloud manner within your data center, within your premise. So that's GreenLake at its core. Now, through the marketing, we've developed it into very specific applications, MLOps, we have VDI, we have very specific solutions. But even with any of those, we're delivering the physical technology and solutions into your premise, right?
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. I know there could be a lot of confusion around it. Some people say, well, hey, I'd like to buy some GreenLake. Well, GreenLake is a framework. There's much more to it. You really need to understand the core. It's not just this, hey, I'm buying GreenLake, like it's a product sale or something.
Well, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen GreenLake used as a noun. I'd like to buy some GreenLake.
Right.
I've used it as a verb. I'd like to GreenLake that. What if I GreenLaked this, right? So again, I've seen it in multiple ways, but yeah, absolutely. We want to just cut right to the core. It's us delivering our technologies and solutions in a cloud manner. So again, at the end of the day, the most important thing is we've got to get to our customers' business outcomes. That's the most important thing, right?
Yeah, so someone just asked if this is a storage as a service.
Part of GreenLake, great question. Part of it is absolutely storage as a service. So what are let's Chad, right to your question. What are the things that we could deliver? We could deliver storage as a service. Okay, so we could deliver it by gig. So you have storage as a service, and storage done a couple of ways. First, it could be in our storage arrays, Primera, Nimble, but we also have server-based storage solutions in the Apollo. So, especially when you're dealing with things like Cumulo, Commvault, Cohesity, and others, right? So all of those can be wrapped in. We can also do compute as a service and compute by the core, by the virtual machine. We could do networking as a service. So it's all of these things that we have in the portfolio, across the entire portfolio, we're delivering as a service. Great question, just to bring some more clarity to it.
And I have another question. Who owns the assets?
So ownership is always a very interesting thing. So who retains title to the equipment would be HPE. Now, what's really important here, a lot of times when people ask those, question like that, the question on ownership might be coming from a budgeting and from a financial perspective. Here's what I mean by that. Sometimes when a customer asks, who owns the asset? What they're really meaning is, okay, this is a pay-as-you-go. That's great. I usually think OPEX treatment. My company is all around CAPEX. We do everything CAPEX. I have annual budgets. GreenLake, just to be clear, GreenLake can be structured in a number of different ways financially, so that when we talk about ownership, would this be an asset we put on our books, and can I use capital budgeting? The answer is yes, you can. So ownership, from a capital perspective, putting an asset on your books, absolutely, we can accommodate that, and we have many customers that do. But from an ownership perspective of who retains title to the asset, who's responsible for this thing when it's all done, that is HPE.
Well, since you brought up this financial conversation, and that was a great question. It's actually a good segue to kind of one of the questions I want to ask. This is truly a financial play, right, Chris? How do we align, or how do our customers align to those financial objectives that they're looking for? Can you speak a little bit more on that, kind of dig a little deeper for me?
Yeah, so great comment that it's a financial play, and a piece of it is a financial play. There's more to it though. So let me talk about how it's a little more than a financial play, but then we can get into the financial elements, right? So how is it not a financial play? A purely financial play would be, Mr. and Ms. Customer, you want a storage as a service. You would have gone out and you would have put a petabyte of capacity in your data center. That's great. Guess what? A financial play is, I'll give you a lease. I'll give you a lease on that petabyte of storage, and you'll just pay X amount per month over the course of 4 years. We'll call it a day. That's a financial play. That's just helping me preserve cash flow. By the way, we can do that. We can always do something very simple like that. Where GreenLake is different though, part of the magic sauce is we meter this capacity, and we're very precise. We give our customers normally the ability to flex up and down. So what we're doing is we're being very precise about how we're aligning the physical capacity, this physical stuff, to the applications, to the business outcomes. Now, here's what ultimately happens with most of our customers. I would have gone out and bought a petabyte of storage. Why would I put a petabyte of storage when I only needed 300 terabytes, 400 terabytes? Well, we all know why. I got budget. I have budget. I need to make sure I protect myself for the future. So I'm going to go buy a petabyte of storage. In GreenLake, we don't need to do that. We can start smaller and we can grow, ebb and flow as the applications demand. And ultimately, what we see in almost every single instance is our customers actually slow the growth. We become far more precise. We change the way our customers are procuring, they're deploying, and they're using the technology. We truly, align to what the applications are. Now, Chad, to your question then, okay, great. So I put this on the floor, I meter it, and I literally am procuring by the workload. That's great. How can I align to budgeting? How can I align to other financial objectives? So number one, if I slow the growth, ultimately, our customers actually procure less technology by doing it this way. Because if I can make our customer an internal cloud provider, they become an AWS to their businesses. I begin to a lot of times our customers, they have stranded capacity. Hey, I got budget for this project. I went and bought technology. I put it over there, and I kind of forgot about it, but I have extra storage capacity over there. I have extra compute capacity. If we put it into a GreenLake model, now all of a sudden, I'm looking at this as a virtual farm, let's say, and now all of a sudden, to be far more precise, I unlock that stranded capacity. So number one is we reduce the total spend, and that's why a lot of our customers see 20, 30, 40% less because we're being more precise. Now, a lot of our customers today, they'll come in saying, hey, I want to see your OPEX model. And what they mean by that is, hey, I just want to see your pay-as-you-go model. I want to buy their drink, and that's great. So, but when they use words like OPEX, a lot of times people don't really mean an operating expense treatment. They just mean a pay-as-you-go. But that brings up something really interesting is there were some accounting rules that changed recently. And a lot of our customers, they want the pay-as-you-go. They want all these benefits of GreenLake, but they have to fit into some older, I'll call them budgeting and financial elements. I have capital budget I need to use. My company's measured on EBITDA. All of these things mean that I need to treat this in a capital expenditure manner. And without going into details, the reality is we do that, well, our customers do that all the time. We are not an accounting company, right? So just to be clear, I can't give you accounting guidance and the way you account for things in your books, but we have customers that account for this all the time. So we have customers that say, look, I have budget, I need to burn it right now. We can accommodate that. Absolutely, we can. So lower expenditure, aligning to budget cycles, and we also give our customers now the ability that they can start doing show back. They could do guilt back. They can start giving bills to the end users saying, look, you use this much capacity, your business unit should pay this amount. So we're starting to see some of that go on in the industry as well. So
good. Yeah, that's great stuff. And I'm having conversations with customers every day, talking about private, public, hybrid. How can I take some of that public cloud consumption and bring it on-prem? They're asking about data gravity and the importance of repatriation and bringing things back on-prem, this, that, and the other. What are you seeing in the field? What kind of challenges are you running into, and how are you solving those?
Chad, I'm seeing that all over the place. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm not saying a CIO's job was ever easy. I don't mean it like that. But 4 or 5 years ago, we saw so many of our CIOs and C-level executives say, okay, my strategy is pretty simple. It's a cloud-first strategy. I'm going to put as much into the cloud as possible. And I'm going to slowly wean myself out because I don't want to deal with this technology. 4 or 5 years later, we're seeing a very different story now. We're seeing that customers are realizing for various elements that, the public cloud, it sounded good. And for certain applications, absolutely, public cloud makes the perfect sense. Hey, at HPE, we use Office 365. We do a lot within the public cloud. But what our customers are seeing is we're finding that 2/3 of the applications of our workloads, they need to be on premise for the reasons you said, data gravity. Mr. and Ms. Customer, at the end of the day, if you were to say one piece of advice, don't let go of your data. Okay, maintain control of your data, maintain control of your storage. Keep your data with you, both from a physical, security, and financial perspective. Too many of our customers, we've run to the cloud, we put our data out there. Now all of a sudden, we're getting hit with egress fees, et cetera. So what we're now seeing, Chad, a lot of customers coming to us saying, okay, this was good. I didn't move as many as I thought to public cloud, or those that I did, I'm now realizing that certain workloads I need to bring back. And so what we're seeing is a lot of customers coming to us saying, okay, we tried the cloud first, and we understand where we're going to continue on that strategy, but we really need to develop a true hybrid strategy. What are those things that are going to stay on premise or in a colo, or like I said, out at the edge, right? We have a lot of customers that have remote offices or facilities that they need that capacity out at the edge, and that's what we're seeing. So a lot of customers now realizing I need some help developing a hybrid approach that I really hadn't given much thought to before, and can you help me with that?
Man, that's great. And TIG, we really do. I had to toot our own horn here for a minute. We do a really good job providing thought leadership around cloud. We really want to understand why customers want to go to the cloud. I can't tell you how many calls I've been on. Chad, how do I get in the cloud? What's the quickest way? Well, what's your strategy around it? And always, 9 times out of 10, well, I really don't know. What do you mean by strategy? Well, we need to start there. We need to determine what's a good fit for the cloud. What needs to stay on-prem?
And Chad, I just have, that's where TIG and HPE make the perfect sense. Look, GreenLake is a great vehicle. GreenLake is a great mechanism to go do this. But if you don't have the right intelligence to go do it the right way, to understand the sizing and understand you're building that hybrid approach and logic, this great vehicle isn't going to drive the best value. So that's where TIG and HPE with GreenLake brings the best value. So if I bring the intelligence and TIG builds out that hybrid strategy, now GreenLake is a vehicle that I can go execute on. That's really where the rubber meets the road, and that drives the biggest value. That's where customers see the biggest impact. Right to your point, Chad, what you're talking about with TIG, as so many customers have gone to the cloud, they didn't approach it with that intelligent thought first. And so where we see a lot of people kind of missing the boat is because they hadn't given that. So that upfront thought process and strategy, incredibly important to make this kind of live up to its standards.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive a little technical. I don't want to get too technical here based on the audience that we have, but what are the technical or the primary technical solutions, to be more specific, that customers are leveraging? Can you speak to that without getting too deep in the weeds, but just to dig a little bit deeper around the technical aspect?
Yeah, sure. So we hit on so Manal, you had asked a question up front. It was a great one. So at the core, the two most common that we see, and it's interesting because when we talk to our a public cloud brethren, they say still even today this is the two most common. Storage as a service. Give me the ability to bring my storage in and deliver by gig, by terabyte, or to do a DR, to do a backup as a service. So storage related solutions. Okay, so that's the number one, that I would say is the number one place. Number two would be around, I'll call it general compute. I need to go build a virtual compute farm because either A, mine is expiring, or I have significant growth, but help me build a virtual compute farm. So those are, I will call, the two most common. And then we start getting into some, I'll call them application specific. So one is VDI. I need to build a VDI farm. We also have a lot of solutions around SAP. In the healthcare space, we have a lot of customers doing Epic as a service, where we're building the infrastructure as a service. We just closed a significant opportunity using ML ops, machine learning ops. We're going to start to see more of those. So you can get into some very specific workload and workload centric, and watch HPE. We're monitoring very carefully. I'll say some, just as you watch some of the compute architecture, and you're going to start to see workload peaked architectures coming out in the next few years. Not everything is going to be generic software defined architectures. You're starting to see movement, workload specific. And all of those will be delivered as a service. So Chad, back to your question. Number one and number two, storage as a service, compute as a service, hands down the two most common that we deliver. And then we get into some very specific workload application based solutions that we deliver to our customers.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up healthcare. TIG has a strong focus around the healthcare vertical right now. And, we're teaming with HPE and GreenLake with that Epic as a service and things of that nature. Just a solid solution that's just ready to go. It's just ready to be consumed. It just takes that difficult build out of the equation, and let's just get it set up and move and get working on it.
We actually have customers that when they went to deploy Epic said, you need to scale it to this size because what we demand, and they deliberately they had our customers over scope and oversized just because they needed that flexibility within the application. And we had one customer in the South that said, no, actually we're using GreenLake. And that's when the relationship with Epic really started, and we've developed that relationship with Epic. And Epic said, okay, wait a second. If you're going to go buy this, we're going to require you to scope this. But if you're going to deploy this in GreenLake, we're going to allow you to, again, let's be more efficient about what we actually deploy, because they realized GreenLake was flexible enough that it could meet that demand, now and into the future for the Epic rollout. So really critical.
That's cool stuff.
Going back to the financial conversation. So one of the audience asked, does the customer pay the property tax?
Great question. No, that is actually on HPE to pay, because going back to your question, the first one, Manal, who retains ownership of this? Remember, I said ownership is in two forms. We retain title, which means we pay the property tax. So we account for that. So that is a benefit that comes into play within GreenLake. So our customers don't need to worry about the property tax on this equipment, regardless of where it sits.
And another question: what does the life cycle look like for the typical GreenLake deployment? And since it's capital, how much the asset is reusable?
So typical, our typical GreenLake deployments will run anywhere from 3, 4, or 5 years. Those are your typical. And what we'll do is we want to align that to the refresh and the cycle that our customers expect. Now, so what happens is at the end of the life cycle, what happens with that infrastructure? What happens with the technology? What happens with the solution? So great, we're coming upon the end of that life cycle. Mr. and Ms. Customer, by the way, life cycle. TIG initiates the conversation. Mr. and Ms. Customer, let's be intelligent about this. Let's size this appropriately. We get it sized appropriately, we deploy. Once we deploy, then there's an ongoing process with TIG, HPE, and our customers that we go through a whole capacity planning and management process. That's all built in. We have the metering, we have the portal. So again, a lot of intelligence built into this, right? Okay, so now we're coming upon the end of this life cycle. It's the end of, let's say, 3 years in a storage deployment. Mr. and Ms. Customer, we're coming upon the end of the 3 years. What do you want to do? Do we want to refresh this environment? Because, by the way, there's a newer technology that is providing better performance. Customer can say, no, actually, I'm pretty good with this. And if we wanted to extend it, we can extend. We can keep using that gear. And just like anything else, if we commit to another year or so, we can reduce the price per widget, price per gig. So we have a couple of options. Or the other option is, hey, just take this off the floor. One of the things we can do in storage, especially, one of the worst things that I've ever gone through in my life is storage migration. They're just not fun. Yeah. I mean, so again, in GreenLake, one of the greatest things to do is, hey, as this storage array is coming, towards the end of the life cycle, we can bring in an empty storage array right next to it. And as we're winding one down, we can fill one up. And so now our customers, we mitigate that whole double bubble. So think about one of the most painful things we ever put into a data center, storage migration. Yeah, well, if I put it into an as a service, I mitigate that challenge. So again, hey, is it just a financial conversation? No, it goes beyond that. Just a financial conversation is, let me put this into a lease for you, great. But now all of a sudden, because we're delivering it as a service, it gives us a lot more flexibility around the way that our customers are the whole customer experience. So
Um,
Manal, did I answer the question fully? There was a question around capital
yeah,
in there. Did I hit that? Okay.
so yeah, what does the life cycle looks like for the typical GreenLake deployment, and how, and since it's a capital expenditure, how much the asset is reusable?
So
The second
That's
one.
a good
again,
question.
yeah. So again, to be clear on the whole capital operating piece, I think legally I have to say, again, we are not an accounting advisory. We do not provide accounting advice, et cetera. Okay. Now, the reality, our customers, we have customers today that treat this in an operating expense. We have other customers that treat this as a capital expense. What happens is our customers will say, I need this treated one way or another. And what we do is we work with the way it's structured, the way the language is to help, help our customers accommodate. In the capital scenario, either way, at the end of that life cycle, sometimes our customers say, hey, listen, just keep it on the floor. I want to just keep running with it. So we can absolutely reuse that asset, after that life cycle. I hope that addresses the question.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and we always hear about, moving at the speed of business. We hear that every day, and
Yeah.
first to market and get things out there, and everything's around velocity. Just real quick, since we're on this financial conversation, I know we got another question here, Manal. What is HPE doing that can quickly give the customer, pricing and the solutions themselves? Because some going through this sales cycle, this process sometimes can take months with solutions like this and at this magnitude. So can you kind of speak to kind of what HPE is doing around that?
Yeah, great question. So, if I go back some time, it's like, hey, we've got a great solution. Let's get the pricing, let's get it developed for our customers in a quick manner. Well, we weren't necessarily always the greatest at that. So one of the things we've developed is the ability, if you go to hpe.com, /GreenLake today, you can develop pricing. We have standard pricing out there today. What we're driving in general, Chad, is while today in a GreenLake, you can architect anything in our portfolio to be delivered as a service, anything in any configuration across the entire portfolio. That's great. The reality is, do our customers really need those 10 million permutations of a DL360? Not necessarily. We need trying to get to standard configurations that really just drive business outcomes. That's the thing we should be worried about. So what's happening? Today, we have what we call internally quick quote, but you can go, like I said, out to hp.com /GreenLake, and you can develop a price per virtual machine, a price per gig, a price per networking port, a price per physical server, a price per port, depending on what your workload is. And you can see those standard solutions, pricing right off the chart. So that's number one, just to make sure that, our customers have that pricing and they can start scoping for that. Number two, one of the things we're also doing, Chad, is again, take to those standard configurations. What we're doing is we're pre-stocking inventory in through our distribution network that says, look, if you're going to buy a standard solution, let's make sure that we have that inventory in place. So all of a sudden, if I've selected a standard solution and I need more capacity or new capacity, that's ready to ship. So it's not like we're putting a call all the way back into the factory to make this and then ship out. We're looking to stock inventory and make sure that that's pre-positioned. So a lot of work there to say, A, we can get you to a price quickly. B, once you've gotten to a price, making sure that we have the ability to actually deliver to you in a much more expedient manner. And so a lot of work is going on internal to make sure that we're living up to that.
Okay, Manal, did you have a question? I didn't want to cut you off earlier.
Yeah, so you talked about the line card of application solution. So what is how the customer can see the line card of application solution, like you just said or listed, and about the VDI, STAS, and all the other solutions.
So I guess the question is really around how can we see what the actual deployment is within. So within GreenLake itself, I think I'm going to answer this question. Let me know if I miss. But within GreenLake, we have the GreenLake Central portal. So as our customers So I deploy another server, I deploy another Synergy node, and as I deploy a VDI instance, a virtual machine instance, or taking the instance of Hadoop. Hadoop is a bare metal application. As I spin up compute instances in Hadoop, I'm chewing up more cores. I can actually see real time how many cores I'm using. So as our customer deploys workloads into this environment, we have the ability to actually meter and see what's being used. Now, we also have the ability to do what I'll call GreenLake Private Cloud, which now all of a sudden, GreenLake Basic basically says, hey, we're delivering the infrastructure and the services to meet what you need. You, Mr. and Ms. Customer, you're deploying, you're using the stuff like you've always done. We don't change the way that you operate this. That's great. We have some customers, though, that say, you know, I want that full cloud experience. I want to be able to just go to a portal, click a button, deploy a virtual machine, call it a day. And we do have that ability as well. That's what we call GreenLake Private Cloud. So you can almost think of it in two ways. One, you know, we deploy the infrastructure and we meet the needs, and we're metering to what our customers need. And that's storage as a service, compute as a service, all that stuff we've been talking about. The other thing we can do is this GreenLake Private Cloud. And that way you think GreenLake as an appliance. We come in, boom, goes on the floor, click button, deploy virtual machine, and you're good to go. Did that answer the question, Manal and Chad?
I think so. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. And the more and more I hear about it, the more and more I talk about it, it just makes sense financially. But from a technical perspective, it being able to migrate and move and tech refresh in general, it's just the easy button, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Manal?
Yeah, and we'll follow up about the all solution that we can get under GreenLake, like VDI, storage as a service, and all the other Epic and other solutions. So yeah, we will follow up with that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing, Chris. You know, obviously TIG works in, you know, medium-sized to enterprise level accounts, but we also have smaller accounts, small cities, for example, and, you know, K-12 accounts. And I always get the question, Chad, we're just way too small. How can we benefit from GreenLake? And then I begin to explain to them around GreenLake Swift. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, great question. So, you know, we used to hear that all the time. Oh, we're just too small to benefit from GreenLake. And, you know, the reality is, no, you're not. Now, look, if you're looking to buy, you know, if your environment is basically one server, right? Well, okay, let's have that discussion. That might not necessarily be the best benefit, but we have customers today that say, you know, I'm too small. And so what we've done is we've released GreenLake Swift, which basically says, let's get this down into a very small element so that our smaller customers, in, like you said, especially, you know, smaller cities, that they can benefit. Here's the interesting thing. If, you know, a lot of times our customers come in, they become a GreenLake customer. One of the benefits we give in this, Chad, is volume discounts. Hey, as you buy more stuff, as you put more into it, you know, our ability to, you know, our cost to support this doesn't scale linearly. We give benefits of that. Great. So a lot of times our customers will say, well, I'm going to start small over here. Okay. But as I add another small environment and another small environment, these small environments, they add up pretty quickly. And now all of a sudden, what you think is small turns into something that we can drive some of those volume discounts that our customers never really anticipated before. So the GreenLake, what we call the Swift program, aims specifically to make sure we can start in a much smaller environment. But then, you know, just watch out, because the good news is all of a sudden now it gives the ability that we can start adding different environments in and bring those economies of scale to the entire system, not just one environment. So yeah, it's a different conversation than we've ever had before.
Well, I do get that question around supply chain. We're on the heels of this COVID. I'm hoping we're getting back to somewhat of normalcy here in 2021. There's always that. I don't want to have to go back and get more drives and have to call and get more storage and get more, compute. And when I break down GreenLake and how the capacities are already there, supply chain really ain't an issue when it's planned and built right. You'll scale on demand and not need to go back and ask, I need more storage for my Primera appliance, or I need something more for my Nimble appliance. I need more compute. Can you speak to that a little bit, kind of ease the mindset of a supply chain conversation?
Yeah, we're talking about a coffee chat here, right? So, interesting enough, my sister-in-law is a procurement officer for NASA, and so this wasn't a coffee chat. This was more like a wine chat. But we started talking about supply chain procurement and what's really important. Chad, you're absolutely right. Today, when we talk to procurement always seems to be kind of the bottleneck, but they have a really good purpose. Their purpose is to make sure that they're being fiduciary responsible in the way that they're spending the money. It's absolutely critical. So one of the things that procurement really likes about GreenLake, and one of the things I always want to make sure we're portraying, a couple of things. Number one, up front, we give you a rate card, so you know what the price is. So when we go to expand and grow, this isn't, hey, let's go get a quote and let's make sure that vendors. No, we give you a rate card up front. Boom. So you have very predictable pricing.
That's huge. That's huge.
That is massively. In fact, that was the question I asked my sister-in-law. I said, what's the most important thing to you? Answer was price consistency. Fantastic. Okay, so number one, we give you a rate card. Number two, like I said, with those volume discounts, by the way, once you go above this many units, that goes from $1 a unit to 90 cents a unit. So I have predictable, not just predictable pricing, but I also know when I'm going to get those additional, I'll say the discounts, volume discounts, right? But then next is knowing that we have the extra capacity on the floor, Chad. When I need more capacity, it isn't I'm running to procurement, oh my gosh, I need this, yesterday, quick go through. No, we have it sitting on the floor for you to go deploy. You don't have to go ask for that, all right? And then, really the last one is, again, going back to GreenLake Central, I used to go out to the, I used to do these, back in the old days when we'd see people face to face, we'd do these seminars and, IT would be sitting on one side of the room, finance would be sitting on the other side. And just as a game, I'd say, okay, finance, raise your hands. They would raise their hand. I'd say, how many of you trust how much IT is spending and using technology? And they're like, no way, they wouldn't, not at all.
Right.
What's great about GreenLake Central is now all of a sudden, the financial, CFO or, the finance team can log in. They can actually see how much is being used, and they know for sure that IT isn't wasting money. So think back to procurement. Procurement was always, they're the tough ones because, wow, they're difficult to deal with. Their job is incredibly important. And so with GreenLake now, what we do is we make their life easier and we give them the visibility that says, you know what, you're responsible for efficient spending of your company's money.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? I'll give you the tools so that you not only, we're not only going to convince you of that, but you're going to make sure that the entire life cycle through. That's really important. That's a very important role in this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Manal, do we have any questions at this point?
Nothing at this point.
How's that Dunkin' Donuts treating you, Chad?
Well, I'm going to tell you, this has really been good. And I promise you, next time, Chris, I'm bringing bagels to this because this conversation, I could go on and on about the benefits of GreenLake. And just having this conversation with you has opened my eyes up and allows, me to fully understand, starting at its core, going through financial conversations, being able to, from a supply perspective and procurement, it's all put together. It's ready to go. It's just, we just have to get out and just tell customers how wonderful it is. And I'm hoping some of them can hear that today. TIG has a strong focus around HPE GreenLake right now. We've got experienced engineers, solution architects and engineers all the way even through the Aruba stack, because there's some, around Aruba networking and things of that nature. So GreenLake's not just limited to just storage, okay, or just compute. And we can definitely have deeper conversations around that. But man, this has really been good, and I want to tell you how grateful I am to have you speak to us today. Manal, I want to thank you as well for answering some of these questions. I don't want to go on too far and too long in this conversation. We got to get back to work. I got to go top off my coffee here because I'm actually out. But if there's no more questions, I just want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today, being a part of this conversation, and we will continue to have more of these in the future. So thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate your attentiveness and all your questions that were asked. Feel free to reach out, www.tig.com, chad.martin@tig.com. You're not going to bother me. Love to hear from you. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.